Welcome to the final webinar in the three-part series, Unlocking Energy Savings in Your Business, Hands-on Energy Efficiency Hacks. I'm Jackie Donaldson, the Hub Coordinator for Green Economy Peterborough. In today's lesson, in today's event, we have Unlocking Energy Savings for Your Business with Clara Blakelock, GreenUp's Energy Program Manager, who will teach you hands-on actions to improve the energy efficiency at your workplace. This will be followed by a short presentation by Braden Clark, Loans Manager at Community Futures Peterborough, on funding opportunities available through his organization. Before we start, a bit about Green Economy Peterborough. The event host, that is us, and Green Economy Peterborough is a local program and a network provided by GreenUp. It supports local business leaders to learn about and reduce their environmental impact. We coach participants through a series of steps to save money while fulfilling their greenhouse gas reduction goals. The network side of the program is all about supporting each other, learning together, and celebrating our successes. Here we are. Here's the gang. It's a great group of leaders and innovators. And importantly, we are local. We buy each other's products or services. We're business peers, we're neighbors, we're friends. We see each other around town at events, in our parks, and sometimes on our bikes. A big shout out to the members who are in attendance today. With that, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker, Clara Blakelock, GreenUp's Energy Manager. Clara is the Energy Program Manager she is a registered energy advisor, a certified energy auditor in training, and has completed an advanced certificate in sustainable energy management. And she has a Master's of Engineering and Public Policy. Welcome, Clara.
Thanks, Jackie. Okay, I think if you stop share, oh no, I can just replace it. Yep. And then maybe you can take over letting people in
Okay.
now. So just bear with me as I get my slides up. Oh, I think that's already full screen. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, great. So hi everyone. It's a smaller group today. So yeah, as Jackie said, I'm happy to have you raise your hand and ask questions as the presentation goes on. But I really appreciate you being here on this nice spring day, the first day of spring, we believe. I think it's today. And yeah, being here to join me for this presentation on hands-on efficiency hacks. So let's get into it, huh? Here we go. So yeah, what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to talk a little bit at the beginning about quick wins of what I mean by that and why they're important when you're implementing an energy efficiency program at your business. And then we'll get right into the hands-on hacks. And so for this presentation, it's really the focus is on things that you can do and implement right away at low or no cost. So we're not talking about these big capital improvements that are going to take a lot of planning and investment to do. We're talking about things that you can do to start saving energy right now. And so we'll have examples in air sealing, thermostats, hot water tanks, ventilation, and in lighting. And then a little bit about moving forward. And then I think I'll go back. I'm not sure if it'll go to Braden or Jackie to talk a little bit more about next steps as well. So in our previous presentations, if you were there for them, we talked about sort of the basics of energy efficiency. We talked about doing an assessment and things to look for, and we'll cover some of that again in this presentation as well. But now we're hoping you're at the stage of you want to go ahead and implement an energy efficiency program in your business. And one of the great ways to start that is by making some changes that are going to give you some quick wins. So some energy savings, some comfort improvements, things like that, things you can do right away. It's a great way that you can engage with your staff or management to demonstrate that commitment. It's a good way to get momentum going. So if you can do something that's going to save you money right now, it can be a good argument for saying, well, we've saved this much by just spending this little bit, maybe we need to invest a little more to get even bigger savings. Um, some of these things we're going to talk about are things you can do yourself or your staff can work with you. It can be a team building activity, getting hands-on. So we're not talking about reports that sit on a shelf for some action, to happen sometime in the next 5 years. Right now, we're talking about things that you can do this week, next week, um, right away. So that's the focus of this presentation. And if you're wondering why I picked this picture, so this was in one of my previous presentations. It's at the library where they have the doors propped open between the vestibule and the rest of the library. I'm sure there is a reason for why they have that there. But a quick win could be closing those doors. No cost. So we're going to go through a bunch of different examples, ideas for projects that you might take on. They're not all going to be applicable to every business. So while I'm talking about them, I hope you'll be thinking in about your context and what might work in your organization. And so when you're picking your first project, some questions you might want to be asking yourself are, what what is doable with our current capacity, resources, and equipment? Maybe you have $0 to spend and you can only do something that's going to cost $0. Maybe you might be able to spend $50 to $100 on something, and then that'll change which projects you might be able to do. Do you have a sense of what is going to have the biggest energy savings impact? You may or may not, but it's a question to ask. What are staff most likely to get behind? So I'm going to talk about two different things here. One of them is air sealing, and one of them is thermostat adjustments. Now, if you have, for example, a very leaky, drafty building, it might be hard to get your staff behind turning down the heat on the thermostat in order to save energy. It might be easier to get them behind sealing up the air leaks to make the house or the building less drafty. So that's just an example. And then you can also think about your clients because energy efficiency upgrades can also benefit your clients. So what's going to benefit your clients the most? So yeah, let's get into it. Hands-on efficiency hacks. So air sealing, thermostats, hot water tanks and pipes, ventilation, and lighting are the examples that we're going to go through today. And so yeah, I just want to reiterate, and these are things that it's been interesting for me as I've been preparing this presentation. I've been trying to implement some of these things at GreenUp as we go, because we have the same issues here as every other business, which is that it's not really anybody's job to focus on these things. There's a lot going on. Everybody's really busy. There's a lot we don't understand. So yeah, I'll use some examples from our office at GreenUp throughout the presentation. And yeah, I hope you'll be thinking about your workplace and what might work for you. And I hope that maybe by the end of the presentation, you can try to be picking one of these things and saying, yeah, this is what I'm going to try to do in my workplace. When on the whatever timeline works for you. So air sealing. So I'll just remind you about we talked about this in some of the previous presentations if you were there. The building envelope is the connection between the indoors, the heated space indoors, and the outdoors, heated or cooled, depending on the season. And so you want normally to have an airtight building so that heat is not escaping from the building, or you're not losing your cooling in the summertime. So you need to do a little assessment. Maybe you already did this if you did your energy walkthrough and treasure hunt and identified some of these areas. But if not, you're looking for gaps in the building envelope. And these are some common places to look. So gaps around your windows, weather stripping on doors or doors that don't close properly. If you have shipping doors, looking for the seal around those. Any other venting or holes to the exterior in your workplace. And as I mentioned earlier, any doors that are propped open between unheated areas and heated areas, or doors that don't close all the way is another one to look for. So you're looking around, you find some air leaks, you're going to pick one and say, this is what we're going to address today. Maybe you're going to try to address all of them, but maybe just one. So then you're going to have to figure out your supplies. For this one, in some cases, you might be able to do it. If it's a matter of just closing a door, then you might not need any supplies. But if you're going to need some to do some sealing, you might need to take a trip to Home Depot or Home Hardware, get some caulking. So they have a section at Home Depot that's called air sealing. There are some things in other sections as well. But you're looking at, 20 to $30 for caulking. You might want a can of spray foam, depending on the kind of leaks you're trying to seal. If you're looking at replacing door weather stripping, or door sweeps, you might be spending 20 to $50, and then you might need some basic tools, which hopefully you already have, and wouldn't need to purchase. So let's go ahead and do it. I mean, again, depending on the project you're doing, you might need to look up some instructions on YouTube if you're not the most handy kind of person. If you haven't done it before, you want to always be following the instructions on the labels for usage and wearing your personal protective equipment. So I'm just going to share here. I hope this will be useful. I might not play the whole video, but I have a little video about how to replace a door's weather stripping. It's 3 minutes long. So, if that's something that, you've been thinking about wanting to do at your business, or it's needed, maybe this will be useful. So I'll play part of it, and then we'll probably pause it partway through, but
Hey, it's Mike from Swissco.com, and today I'm going to show you how to install a commercial door weather strip. The tools you'll need for this project are a hacksaw, a drill, 7/64 inch drill bit, Phillips head screwdriver, safety glasses. This pair of commercial doors measures 7 feet tall, so we will be using the Swissco 58085, which measures 7 feet in length. If it were an 8-foot tall door, we could use the Swissco 58111, which measures 8 feet in length. First, remove the existing weather strip. Keep your original screws around, as you can use them to install the new weather strip. After you've removed your original pieces of weather strip, place your new weather strip on a flat surface and set your old weather strip next to it and see if the screw holes line up. If the screw holes don't line up, you will need to drill for new ones using a 7/64 inch drill bit.
okay, I think I'm going to stop it there. It continues and shows you exactly how to do it. I think it's interesting, if I mean, I haven't done this before, but it makes it look pretty straightforward, and I think any of us could probably do it if we set our minds to it. So yeah, I will go to the, oops. All right. I think I'm on the next slide now. So yeah, that was air sealing. That's just one example of a project that you could be doing depending on, depending on your workplace. It might be getting out the spray foam. It could be other things. But yeah, there's lots of options there. And usually those are a great one for, reducing your heating costs and improving comfort for staff that are in the rooms. And, air leaks are never a good thing. So next, we're going to talk about thermostats. So there's lots of different kinds of thermostats that you might have. Maybe you've already been through your building and you've seen them all, maybe not. You might have programmable thermostats. You might have manual thermostats, which can look, they can look like that on the top right, or they can be even like a dial on a baseboard heater, which I have a picture of later on in the presentation. Or maybe you've got a smart thermostat. Many of us have those in our homes now, but they may be in some offices as well. So you want to, you also, I mean, I know in our office for sure, it's the case that we have several different thermostats in different parts of the building. So some rooms have the manual thermostat and are heated with baseboard heaters. We've got a heat pump in the main office. Some of the baseboard heaters don't have a thermostat on the wall. They just have the dial. So you want to take stock of what you've got in your building. And then if you do have I'm going to talk about both manual and programmable thermostats. If you do have a programmable thermostat, then you can, you might need the manual. You might be able to Google it, but you can go in there and try to see, well, what is the schedule that it's set at? Is it set to the same hours as our business? When was it set? And if you do work somewhere where there's somebody in charge of operating the building, you definitely want to talk with them before you start making any changes to the thermostats, because there may be reasons that it's set the way it is that you don't know about. So yeah, I just want to put that warning in there. Don't start changing things unless you know that nobody's in charge of it, and there's no one who has a plan that you don't know about. And I just wanted to draw attention to one thing, that if you do have a smart thermostat, either in your home or your business, there is a program from the Save on Energy, which is from the electricity operator, that's called Peak Perks, that you can sign up for right now, whether you're a small business or a homeowner. And what it does is, so you have to have a smart thermostat and air conditioning in the building. You have to have both of those things to sign up. They will send you $75, I think it's like a credit card, gift card or something, right away when you sign up. And then they'll give you $20 a year every year you stay in the program. And all it is that for a limited number of events in the summer, during extreme heat, when there's a really high demand on the electricity system, they can go in and turn down your thermostat a couple of degrees to reduce the air conditioning, the load of the air conditioning, to reduce demand on the grid. And I think you can even opt out, like if there's a time and they want to do it and you really can't deal with that at that time, you can even opt out. So it's a great thing to do. It's a way to get $75 to put towards your caulking or whatever you want to invest in energy saving improvements. So I encourage everyone to go sign up for that if you've got the smart thermostat. So for thermostats, we don't really have any supplies, honestly, needed. Like, you might be talking about signage, which doesn't really have a cost. You might want to get out your markers or, make something on the computer. A thermometer for measuring room temperature could be something useful. So I know, especially when you've got like the manual thermostats, or sometimes the sensors for your programmable thermostats are not working properly. So it can be good to have like a freestanding thermometer that you put in the room. And so then you can tell, like, oh, this room really isn't, something's going on with the heating system. It's not heating to the temperature it's supposed to be, or it's way too hot. So that could be something you want. I didn't put a price on that, but it may be something you already have as well. So programmable thermostats, what can we do? Again, we're assuming that we've talked to the building operator and they've said, go ahead. No, I don't know how it's programmed. I never set it up. So you want to program your thermostat according to your business hours when it's occupied. And you want to put up some kind of sign or controls. I think one of the pictures there had like one of those locking boxes over the thermostat, but it can be just a sign, just to let people know that, you're implementing an energy efficiency program, and you're making these changes are deliberate, and we don't want people just changing the thermostat all the time, because often it won't go back to whatever it was before. As I mentioned before, it's great if you do have a drafty workplace and you can fix those drafts before you try lowering the temperature on the thermostat. It will probably get better buy-in from everybody involved, but you want to be setting the thermostat to the lowest comfortable temperature during your operating hours. So 20 degrees is recommended. That may be a bit lower than what people are used to. And so that's where communication is really going to be key, and getting people excited about this idea of, we're reducing greenhouse gas emissions, reducing your heating. Most of us are heating with fossil fuels. So by reducing our heating energy use, that's the biggest thing we can do to reduce fossil fuels. And if that means that people, can't wear their t-shirts to work and they need to wear long sleeves, like, maybe they'll buy into that if they know why. So yeah, communication is really key here. And then you want to be setting back. So setting back at least about 4 degrees during your unoccupied hours. And you can start that actually. So if you're open 9 to 5, you can start the setback at 4 because the building is not going to cool down 4 degrees immediately when you put the setback on. So you can reduce that a little bit. Now heat pumps are kind of an exception. So if you are heating with a heat pump, they don't respond as well to setbacks because they're not able to change the temperature as quickly. So that's something you may not want to set back at night if you are heating with a heat pump. And this can result in really great energy savings for basically zero cost. Just heating spaces when they're not being used, overheating spaces is a huge cost and a huge source of greenhouse gas emissions and a huge waste of energy. So manual thermostats are a bit different. Of course, you cannot program them. So all you can do, I mean, changing out thermostats is something that can be done. But I didn't include it here because the focus here is really things that we can just do right now, without a big investment, without, bringing in any kind of professional. So I'm not really talking about changing thermostats. I mean, it's definitely something to consider if you have all manual thermostats in your building. But in the meantime, assuming you're going to keep the same heating system, you want to have a procedure that's part of the opening and closing procedures, for your staff so that they know what is this supposed to be set to, and what are we supposed to do at the end of the day. And it's part of the training and it's part of it's part of what's done every day. You're going to be putting up signs around it to remind people. So, they know, okay, well, the baseboard heater is supposed to be set to 3 during the day, and then it gets set back to 1 at night or whatever. And again, yeah, communication is going to be really key with this one. It's going to depend on people's behavior and it's going to require follow-up as well, because it's not automated and these things will get lost. All right, so next we're talking about water heaters. This is something that we all have at home and most businesses are going to have one as well. It could be shared, depending on where you are. It might be shared between different units, or you might have your own. So when you're looking at your water heater, the first thing I should have put is find it, locate where it is, and then some questions to ask about it. Is it a gas-powered water heater or an electric water heater? Now, a way to tell that, so a gas water heater will always have something that vents to the outdoors. It could be a metal pipe, or it could be 1 or 2 plastic pipes that go to the outside to vent out the gas fumes. So if it's got that on it, then it means it's a gas-powered water heater. And if it doesn't have, if you don't see any gas line going into it, no venting, then it's probably an electric water heater. And of course, if it's a big tank, then you've got a tank water heater, where the tankless water heaters are smaller and usually rectangular and mounted on a wall. And those are almost always gas powered if they're a tankless water heater. And then what temperature is the hot water set to is another thing to look at. On a gas water tank, there's just a dial right on the water heater that you can look at. On an electric tank, like this one in the picture, you have to remove these covers. So there's 2 panels on the water heater. You just use a screwdriver to remove the cover. And then on the right is showing the water temperature setting. So for supplies for water heaters, we're looking at a water tank insulation blanket. It's recommended for electric hot water tanks, not gas-powered water tanks. And the cost for that is between $50 and $70, depending on the size of the tank and where you go. And then we're also looking at pipe insulation, which is about $5 per piece here. And then you might need also some basic tools for adjusting the water heater temperature. And so let's go ahead and do it. Now I went into a whole rabbit hole about water heater temperature here to try to get the best recommendation for you. So there's 2 factors going on here with water heaters. We want to save energy. We also want to prevent bacteria growth in water heaters. We also want to prevent burns from people scalding themselves with hot water. So I guess that's 3 things really. And there's different recommendations depending which one is your focus. So if your focus is energy efficiency, they would say lower the temperature as much as possible to the lowest setting, which is usually 40 degrees Celsius. However, there is some risk of bacteria growth at that temperature. And so the recommendation for reducing that risk would be 60 degrees Celsius. However, that is also more prone to burns. And what the building code says is that the water heater should be set to 60, and then there should be a mixing valve that brings in cold water that brings it down to 40 to prevent burns. So that's the official recommendation, and you can do your own risk assessment about it. In most cases, the bacteria growth, if the water is being used and changed out regularly from the tank, like in homes, there's not a big risk of bacteria growth, and it's generally okay to have a lower water temperature setting. So then, yeah, you just install the water heater blanket, which is very easy to do. You just basically just put it over the tank, and then insulate those hot and cold water pipes within 3 meters of the tank, or however far you can reach before they go to inaccessible areas. And I do have a little video about this as well that was produced a few years ago by Greenup, actually. So I'll just play that for you.
One of the places in a typical home where a lot of energy is wasted is in the hot water tank. Most of the times our hot water tanks are in our basement where the temperatures are cooler, and those tanks, even though they come insulated, don't have very much insulation. We pump energy into that tank 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep that water temperature hot, and a lot of that energy just leaks out into the basement air around it. One of the easiest and most effective DIY steps you can make to make your house more energy efficient is to put an insulating jacket around your hot water tank. These come in different shapes and sizes to match the size of your tank and the style of your tank, but they're typically literally an insulation blanket that either wraps around the tank or drops over the tank. Very easy to install, and it will make a big difference in your energy bills. Before you wrap your tank, you might also want to take a moment to check the thermostat setting on the tank. Just like the thermostat on your house, there will be a dial knob on the side of the tank with temperature gradients on it. And you can turn that down to the lowest temperature that gives you the kind of hot water that you're comfortable having in your house. With the knob adjusted and the tank insulated, you're going to save a lot on your hot water bills. If you have access to the pipes leading from your hot water tank, insulating those can make a big difference too. Pipe insulation can come in all kinds of different sizes to wrap around whatever style of pipes you have, and keeping that pipe insulation sealed and continuous using the sealants and the tapes that come with the products will make a big difference in how much hot water reaches your taps and how much water you waste waiting for that hot water to come through. These simple steps of turning down the temperature on your tank, insulating the tank, and insulating the pipes will make a big impact on the carbon footprint of your building and on your energy bills. It's one of the simplest DIY projects you can undertake with the biggest impact on you and the planet.
Okay. So yeah, it was a video focused on the home, but it applies equally well to if you're using the same. Many businesses are using the same type of hot water tank as we would be using in our homes. Oops, there we go. All right, so next we're moving on to ventilation. I'll just remind you if you've forgotten what we mean by ventilation. So ventilation is how we're bringing fresh air into the building. Most larger commercial buildings won't naturally get enough fresh air, and so they need to bring in fresh air. And the reason why it's a big energy cost is because when you bring in fresh air from the outdoors in wintertime, it needs to be heated. And so the more fresh air you bring in, the more you need to heat that air, and it increases your energy costs. Now, with ventilation, what you want to be doing is bringing in just the right amount of fresh air. Because of course you need that. Everybody in your building needs to have good air quality, but you don't want to be overventilating because that leads to really dry air and higher energy costs. So when you're assessing your ventilation, you want to be looking at is your building, does it have a ventilation system at all? Because maybe it doesn't. many of our homes, our older homes, are built without any kind of ventilation system. So if you're in a really old building, maybe it doesn't have a ventilation system. But if it does, how is it controlled? Do you have a manual? This is pictures of our ventilation system at Greenup, which was installed very recently. So we do have this little manual that's pinned on the wall next to the controls. So in this case, it was actually pretty easy to find. And then if you do have something like this with a schedule in it, you can try to take a look. Well, what's it programmed to do? What is it set up? How is it set up? Are there filters on the system? If you have a ventilation system, there should be filters. So where are they, and who's responsible for changing them or cleaning them? If there's a building operator, then that would be the person to talk to. And again, same thing as for the thermostat. You don't want to start messing with this if there's somebody who's in charge of it, who has a plan. You may want to talk with them about that plan and how they made that plan, but make sure you consult with them first. So for your ventilation assessment, we're looking at not a lot of cost. So you can actually borrow this CO2 monitor. I don't know, I've got my blurred background here, but I've got it right here. And that's what's in the picture. You can borrow them from the public library. They got a whole bunch of them. They'll let you borrow them for a week at a time, but you can actually go back, and they have so many, you can just ask to keep it for another week. And so this is a good tool, and I'll talk a bit about how we use that tool in the next slide. And then if you do have a system with filters, you may need, and they're not being changed or replaced, you may need to buy new filters. And I'm not sure the cost on that would depend on the system. But again, it's mostly about if you've got some kind of programmable system, then programming it correctly. So you want to adjust that schedule according to the building occupancy. So if you have times when it's very busy, you're going to want to ventilate more. And then if there's times when there's only a couple of people in the building, you can probably reduce your ventilation a lot. And that's where the CO2 monitor comes in, because the CO2 monitor, it measures the parts per million of CO2. We might have gotten more, a lot of us got kind of familiar with this during COVID, when we're with concerns about airborne disease. And of course, those concerns are all still there. And so you want to have your CO2 levels be no more, on average, no more than 1,000 parts per million inside a building. So you want to keep an average of less than 1,000. Now, the outdoor air is between 400 and 500 now. Parts per million, which is a bit shocking because it's a lot higher than it used to be. So what that means is that if you're measuring your CO2 and you're getting levels between 400 and 500, that means that you're basically got the same CO2 as outdoor air, and that can be a sign that you're over ventilating, because you don't really want, the indoor air shouldn't be as low as outdoor air. You want to be recirculating some of the air. But then if you're getting levels over 1,000, then that indicates you're not getting enough ventilation. And, if we were talking about more complex upgrades, then there are CO2 monitors that are connected to the ventilation system. It's called demand controlled ventilation, where the ventilation system will measure the CO2 and determine how much ventilation is needed, and controlled that way. But right now we're talking about very manual systems. So I've actually been doing it. I got the CO2 monitor last week for Greenup, and I've been keeping track. And I actually did make some adjustments to our ventilation system to lower, because we were getting very low CO2 readings between 400 and 500. So I actually lowered the ventilation rate a little bit. And now they're up sort of between 600 or 700, and their humidity has gone up as well, because it measures the humidity. And so that's a good outcome for everyone, because it hasn't gone up too high. It's still only like 30%, which it should be even higher than that, for comfort, but it's a good outcome. It's more comfortable, and we should be saving energy as well. So it's kind of a fun thing to do if you're into that. I recommend it. Use your library card. And then finally, I think this is my last, yeah, I'm still on time, right? This is the last thing I'm going to talk about. So lighting. Do a little lighting assessment, take a look at what's going on with the lighting in your building. If you can't tell by looking at the light fixtures what kind of lights they are, what type of light bulbs are they using, a good trick is to go look at where you keep your spare light bulbs, and whatever kind those are is likely whatever's there. And so, like in our office, we've got fluorescents, we've got some LEDs. There were some that I could not determine what they were. And then the question is, how are they controlled? Is it just light switches? Where are all the light switches? What do they all do? That was a big question in our office. Or maybe you do have sensors, occupancy sensors or lighting sensors. I mean, that's sort of the next level recommendation that we usually give for lighting is, anything you can automate. But right now we're just talking about things you can do yourself. So in terms of supplies, again, it's not much. It's about making labels, making signs, and then just figuring out which lights to use. So let's do it. If you have complicated light switches like we do at our office, you might want to label them to show what they control, so people are clear on which light switches control what. If you have some lights are LEDs and some lights are not LEDs and they're lighting the same area, you want to put preference towards the LEDs. So if there's a way of doing that, whether it's by signage or, removing certain lights if you can, that's a great idea. And then just reminding people to turn off those lights. It could be combined with the thermostat signage. It could be also part of your procedures. All right, so then this is my last slide. So I hope that you've been thinking about, which of these things could we do? What's the first thing that we can do? Maybe we want to do all of them, but you just need to narrow it down and get started and do something. And make it a quick win, get people excited about it, and then you can keep moving. And there's so many things that all of us could do to improve our energy efficiency, reduce our energy bills. You want to keep tracking those bills. Now, this is, especially in this time of year, is a particularly tough time to see improvements because it's spring. So we're all going to be spending less on our heating costs, momentarily. But anyway, if you don't track, you won't know. So keep tracking. You can compare to last year's bills as well. And if you're doing some of these behavioral changes, you need to keep checking in on how they're holding up. So, you put in that procedure to adjust the thermostat, like, is it still set at what you set it at? Or have people changed it? And if they have, you need to find out why and what's going on there. And then, keep that momentum going. After you've done one, you've got your quick win, then you need to plan the next project and see what you can do next. Maybe it's another simple one, or maybe now you're looking at applying for some funding for a larger project that's going to have even bigger impact. I think that's all I've got. So I'll send it back to Jackie, I think.
Thank you, Clara, very, very much. Does anybody have any questions for Clara? No? Okay, so next we have Braden Clark, and he's the loans manager at Community Futures Peterborough. And he's going to tell us about how Community Futures can support your interests in business sustainability and energy efficiency. So over to you, Braden.
Thanks, Jackie. Am I in full screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Organize some windows here so I can see you guys. So sort of a nice segue from where Clara left off about, seeking funding potentially for a larger project that you may want to tackle with your business. I wanted to take just a few minutes today to introduce you to a program that we have available that could potentially benefit you as you look to institute some of those potential changes to your business. So Community Futures, we've been around for 40 years, so we're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, so super excited about that. We're actually we're a nonprofit organization, but the Community Futures program exists across Canada, only in rural Canada. And so it's operated by 269 individual nonprofits across Canada. And the program really was started to provide funding and loan opportunities for small businesses, entrepreneurs, startups in rural Canada who, are unable to get funding from the traditional sources like your bank. So any of the business owners here, I'm not sure if they've ever tried to go to a bank to obtain funding, but it can be, sometimes incredibly difficult, especially in the nonprofit in the nonprofit world, right? This is our team. We're lean and we're mean. So I'm overseeing the loans portion. We've got Rose and Lindsay in our advisory center. So even if you're not seeking funding, but potentially you're looking to, develop a new marketing plan or, talk through some strategies that you'd like to implement for your business, Rose and Lindsay are available to support you with that as well. So really, as I said, we're here to provide financing solutions for rural, small and medium-sized businesses. We've got specialized services on the advisory side. We've got an advocate for partnerships. We work very closely with a lot of other nonprofits and ECDEV agencies within the city and the county. And we do have some programming around specifically for nonprofits who are looking to do sort of economic development projects. We do have some small funding available for that. The program's already closed for the year, unfortunately. So this is the program I wanted to tell you about. It's called the Climate Change and Environment Fund. So the government does regulate or stipulate at what interest rate we are allowed to send to lend out our money. And so if we want to lend out something lower than the minimum, then we need to go to the government and ask for special permission. And so we did that for this program. So we're able to we're going to put out up to $100,000 at prime rate, which is currently at 4.95. And hopefully we'll see another decrease in April. So yeah, so we do have business loans available at 4.95%, up to $100,000. Anything sort of to implement any of the efficiencies that Clara's sort of talked about over the past three workshops. If you've got larger expenses like heat pumps and, HVAC systems and that kind of stuff, this could be perfect for you guys. I also wanted to quickly just highlight a couple different programs that are currently open through our advisory center, and these are grant programs. So no repayment required. So we've got two programs. So one is Starter Company Plus. If you're a business that's less than 5 years operation, you can apply for this program. There's a series of workshops and a grant of up to $5,000 is available. The other program that's available right now is similar. There's some workshops associated with it, some educational pieces, and then it's up to $3,000. And this one specifically is for students between the ages of 15 and 29, so maybe not applicable to anyone in the group, but if you've got a kid in school who would be interested in starting their own business for the summer, as long as they're between 15 and 29 and going back to school in the fall, they can receive up to $3,000 to purchase that lawnmower or some camera equipment for them, to start up a business for the year, which is kind of neat, for the summer, which is kind of neat. And then stay tuned. We just are wrapping up our Entrepreneurship 101 workshops. We've got one left. I think it's next week, and it's all about tax preparation. So if you're interested in that, please be sure to sign up. And then we do have a bunch of more niche workshops coming up under, sort of the Source Series branding that you can expect to see later this fall. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Braden. I am just going to.
Yeah, I don't know how to stop sharing. Oh, wait, I found it. It's over here. I got two different
Yeah, there
screens going
you
on.
go.
There we go.
You think we'd still have this, we'd have this down by now.
Well, we've moved over to Microsoft Teams because it's free for nonprofits, and so yeah.
Yeah, we're moving to that too. So get ready for more fumbling. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you to both Clara and Braden. And I'm wondering if there's any questions out there. No? Well, thank you again, and thanks for your time. And I just want to thank our partners as well. That is City Peterborough, Peterborough County, Green Economy Canada's Community Futures Peterborough, RBC Foundation, and TD. So thank you to all them for making these types of events for our business community possible. I am just going to find a record or hit stop record now. So thank you. And I've just got a few more things to let out.